I am so happy to have you here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I love talking shit with you. It's gonna be so fun.
I know. Thank you for doing it. So I will introduce you. Well, I just want to call you Shula
Yeah,
because
that's fine.
that's what I want to call you. But you can introduce yourself fully. Why don't you do that, and then I'll tell everyone why you're so close to my heart.
Thank you. So my full name is Shulamit Bear Levtov, but as you said, everyone's welcome to call me Shula for short. And I'm the entrepreneur's therapist. I support women entrepreneurs who want to uplift their mindset and pilot their emotions so that they can successfully ride the emotional roller coaster of running a business, and overcome the anxiety and isolation associated with that, those ups and downs. I live on land that was stolen from the Oneida and the Haudenosaunee people. And what was interesting to me, why I'll say that, part of how I've learned how to do land recognitions in a different kind of way, which is to like tell a little bit of what I've learned when I learned that, and then also invite folks into some action around that. So I'll just take a second to say
Yeah.
that this land was part of what's called the Crawford's Purchase in 1783. And what I didn't understand prior to doing my research was how, when First Nations were invited to sign legal agreements with the colonial powers, that brought them out. They used to be out of the realm of European law. But as soon as you sign an agreement, you make yourself subject to that law.
Mhm.
And I don't think that that was well understood by the people who were signing the agreement. So they were duped in that way. And then the agreements, the colonial powers didn't follow through on their half of the contract. So in other words, it was stolen by breach of contract.
Mhm.
It's like so messed up. Anyway, my invitation then, sharing that information to folks, is to tell stories about the land they're on, share those stories with people. And if it feels like it's something that's right for you personally, to think about how to make reparation. And I do that by making regular donation to Minwaashin Lodge and, oh, now I'm having a brain fart, about the other organization that teaches about residential schools. I forget the name, but I'll give it to you and we can put it in the show notes.
Okay.
Um, and so I live rurally. Rural communities and rural economic development are both really close to my heart. And I think that's pretty much what I want to say about myself for now.
Could you please introduce the cat as well?
Oh, this is Minnie, short for Menina, but we never call her that. We call her all kinds of other things, including Evil Princess, because she's so bad. We say she has black patties and a black heart. So she
Oh, but
often
she's
shows up
so
on.
sweet.
She's cute, and that's why I don't wring her neck. See,
Oh, I see. I see. It protects her just like when
like
we
you
have
killed
infants.
me.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for being on here. We've known each other for quite a while, and I really love that.
It's maybe more.
How many do you think?
Eight,
8?
eight.
Oh, is that possible?
Yeah.
But it's so weird because we're still the same age as when we met.
Okay, like that. Yeah.
um, so what I want to tell people particularly about you is just sort of the strong force you are in community mental health, right? And how much I appreciate that about you, and how much I appreciate you continuously sort of disrupting the status quo when it comes to this kind of area, this kind of morality, right? Um, the thing is, I think that sometimes we don't think about strong, powerful feminist women in spaces like rural Ontario, right, or rural Canada, and that's where we sometimes find our fiercest queens, right? So
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that about you, and tell you how much I appreciate that about you. I also wanted to say that I also wanted to thank you for being one of those people on my side when I said that this is the work that I want to do. And you were very much like, absolutely, do it. You must do it. You can do it.
I wanted to see it happen. I really did, because I think it's such an important contribution. Like, we need more of us in the world. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. Because we're great.
Well, yes.
You're allowed to swear. It's okay.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Like, well, and this is, I identify as a shit disturber. I don't know if you would own that, but I certainly see you that way. And I think it's important to talk shit. It's important to rock the boat. It's important to make trouble, because what I have experienced in relation to clients, but also in relation to just the space that I hold and the feedback I get from people about my voice and my presence, is that they feel so validated. So many people come to me, think that there's something the matter with them. And my number one job is to allow people to experience that there's actually nothing wrong with them, and that the problem are for the most part, oppressive systems and structures and they're feeling the impact of that. And this is a phrase that comes from trauma treatment, but I think is quite applicable more generally, that for those of us in non-conforming bodies, we are having a normal reaction to abnormal conditions. It's the conditions, not us, right? But to say that is to talk shit. It's to say the emperor has no clothes, right? But it's so important to do.
Yeah, I so appreciate that message, and I'm so happy that you're giving it to so many people and so many clients, because I think that was one of the most difficult things that I had to come to terms with. It's like, I'm a square peg in a round hole, but also the hole is fucked.
Yes, because you don't want to be round anyway. It's not
Yeah.
something to which to aspire. Right.
Right, exactly. And you have to see the ways that is, that hole, that round hole is really sort of problematic, and the problematic ways that you do try to fit yourself into it. And I think that goes for womanhood. I think I really appreciate you talking about the ways that we are embodied, and also motherhood, right? Like, it's just the ways that we try to cram ourselves in, even though we intellectually know that we rail against it, right?
But we still, because we live it. I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago called Free Your Inner Guru, and she was asking me, we were talking about like the nature of capitalism and male privilege and supremacy that has an impact, like that is it is embodied by the male gurus in the field. And she said to me, like, what can we do about it? And I was like, well, geez, social change, widespread social change. And I use the analogy of like a fish in water, that those things are invisible because it's the water in which we swim. And even more so, the fish metaphor, like fish breathe the water. The water comes into their bodies and goes out their gills. And like the oppressive systems and structures, even though intellectually we can identify them and we can see them and talk about them, we are still at the same time also immersed to the point that we are unified, like the fish is unified with the water in which it swims. And it's like the depth of invisibility that happens from that unification is profound and so hard to identify.
I really appreciate you saying that, because again, it goes back to the whole idea of how we are embodied by certain truths that are outside of us, right? And that for me was motherhood, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, I understand motherhood as a sometimes very oppressive system, right? But the weight of it, and the physicality of it, and the responsibility of it, and all of that kind of thing was internally crushing, right? So it's like, you can philosophize or theorize about it as much as you'd like, and then you live it and you're like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah. Yes. Well, one of the things, like you, I'm on a body liberation journey for myself. the intersection for me of loss of pretty privilege, age privilege, and thin privilege that have all come together in my menopausal years, along with the global pandemic. So now I have the analysis, I have the understanding of diet culture and the harm and fat phobia and the harm that causes. But on the daily, multiple times a day, I come up against the dominant culture and I feel the pain of the mismatch of the squareness trying to fit the roundness, or not wanting to fit the roundness, but having the roundness still impose itself on me as where I want to be, or the truth, or the reality. Like, just because we know it, still it's painful, and we have to do emotional labor on the daily to reconcile, or to not even reconcile, because I have also chronic pain, right? And there's no way you can, like, pain is pain, and it's fucked, and it hurts, and it never, with all the mindfulness and stuff, it doesn't change the fact that you're in fucking pain, right? And the labor it takes to mediate, that's the word I'm looking for, to mediate life in a painful body is, and to mediate life when there's that constant friction. Isn't a good word, but it's the one, like, I think of like friction, like tectonic plates that causes volcanoes and mountains, like friction to that degree, right? To mediate living that, even when we know, like, I guess I try to tell myself it's better than being oblivious, but it sure is a hell of a lot of work. Yeah.
Mhm. So I want to talk a little bit about your sort of passionate theme for today, which is how we're all getting back to normal.
Ah,
So tell me what that looks like for you. Like, tell me what you've been thinking about in terms of post-pandemic realness.
well, I'm pissed off, honestly. Like, today's a bad day. I'm kind of really cranky. And I've had moments of like spikes in crankiness through the pandemic. Like, initially, when people were talking about, take this downtime to learn a new course, and take this downtime to la la la, and like from a real position of like privilege, but also like in the true sense of the word, ignorance. And I was angry then because it was a load of shite. And this back to normal now is also a load of shite, because we have been through 18 months and it's still not over.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I think personally there's going to be another wave, like as we get toward the fall with the Delta and Lambda variants. I would like to be proven wrong, but that's what I suspect. And so I'm still kind of like, we're not out of it. Certainly maybe in North America we are, but if we be less obnoxious about our own selves and look at the rest of the world, that's not happening for them. The impact, somebody I saw, I forget who, I would like to attribute this, but I don't remember who, said that it's like we've just run a double marathon. And if you think about that as an analogy, which I think is a very powerful one, what a person, you think about those crazy ultra marathoners, crazy, I mean, like, as in dedicated, fierce, out of the norm people who run those ultra marathons. And if you've ever seen what happens at the finish line, or even the Tour de France, what happens at the finish line with those people after the cameras go home, what is their state? What are they doing? Like, maybe, they're going to party like it's 1999, the night of. But then what happens after that, in the days and weeks and months after that? What's happening? Right? They have a whole team to support them. They have chiropractors, they have physiotherapists, they have doctors, they have nutritionists, they have trainers, they have massage therapists, they got a psychotherapist, you can be sure of that, a sports psychology expert person, and they dedicate their time to recovery. Mm-hmm. They don't go back to normal. They don't go out the next day for the most part and ride another tour or do another marathon, right? But yet here we are, again, talking about calling bullshit or the emperor's new clothes, right? The discourse is that we are free now, that everything's fine now, that we are released now. without acknowledging, first of all, what the true nature is of what we've just been through, and then what the impact is on us and what that means for us where we are now. Like there was that New York Times article about languishing,
Oh,
right?
yes, yes.
Yeah, that state of like, I'm not bad, but I'm not good either. I'm kind of in that nether world, that shadowy kind of like, I'm not really myself. You know, like that's not a resourced place. And I would say that in the same way that not all of us heard this call, but we were called during the pandemic to be radically careful for ourselves and others, that we need at least another 18 months of being radically careful for ourselves and others still. That we are not back to capacity. We were not pent up with all this joy and excitement and energy that was just waiting to spring free in the majority. I'm sure there are people for whom it's like this, but I think as an overall narrative, it's problematic to think that that's what it's like, because that's not what I'm seeing. It's not what I'm experiencing for myself, and it's not what I'm seeing with clients.
So what do you think people need?
Well, it's going to sound very trite. So I want to preface what I'm going to say with the kind of a couple of prefaces. First of all, don't compare your beginnings to my endings, right? I've practiced that, what I'm going to talk about, I've practiced it since the early 2000s. I'm trained in it. I'm trained to teach it, and I do it as a profession. So I have a real unfair advantage. That's one thing. And the other thing is that if you've experienced adversity, some of these things that are presented as like, oh, just do this or just do that. If you've had a history of adversity in life, it can be more difficult for you. And so to recognize, like to give yourself grace around that if it's not easy for you. So that said, really, I believe the heart of it all is self-kindness. To be as kind and gentle and slow and spacious as you would be with some other tender, delicate being. And sometimes it helps to think about how you might be with something that's not triggering for you. So for some people, it might be how your heart might go out to a child. In some cases, for some people, or how your heart might go out to a vulnerable animal, or how your heart might go out to a tender plant, like a tender green shoot, or a little baby bird, whatever it is that your heart kind of goes out to be able to offer that same kind of thing to yourself, I think is the principle. The practice, of course, is complex and ongoing, but the heart of it is that.
I love that. Will you talk a little bit more about the practice?
So again, I'll outline some steps, and these things can be hard to do on your own, right? So you might want to have, because I'll take a step back. What happens when we get emotionally upset, right? If you can imagine, this is like the brain. We can imagine this is the human brain. And this is the prefrontal cortex. What happens when we get upset is we flip our lids. And what we have in the middle is the mammalian brain, where the emotions and the memories live, let's say. So the emotion center gets hot and we flip our lids. We lose our connection to our ability to problem solve, to be with ourselves, to self-soothe and all that kind of stuff. The prefrontal cortex goes offline. It stops communicating with the rest of us. So that's why sometimes it can, in fact, many times it can be helpful when somebody, you come into your friend and your friend is not upset, and you come in and you're like, wah! But your friend is like this, and your friend goes, I see you. It's okay. I'm chill. And you can go, oh, okay. Right. And then you're like, And then the two of you can just sit together like this in this kind of regulated state. And then you can start to do for yourself what, some of the steps. So I would say the very first thing is to find in these steps is to find some kind of company, companionship, support, validation, somebody to be with you. And that's in terms of our neurophysiology for humans, it's any other mammal, right? To be with another mammal whose lid is on. So it could be a critter, but some people have also, it could be another human being or it could be a critter. But some people have also found like rocks and trees have that same feel of like their lid is on and they got their solid and calm, and you can go and get that solid calming sense from like wrapping your arms around a warm rock or putting your back against a big tree. Because for some people, like mammals are dangerous because mammals were the source of our hurt, right? So step one, finding some kind of comfort or companionship or support. Step two would be once you're kind of like feeling a little bit more in control, would be to say like, I notice I'm having a really hard time. Like just kind of like, oh, I see what's happening here. Like it's kind of a shit show inside and I see that, kind of like, oh. And I notice I'm wanting to take a breath. And that may or may not happen for you, but it's something that you might like to invite if that were something you felt after saying hello. And then the second thing, if it feels right, sometimes for many people, just hello. Oh, hello. Oh, I see it. Okay, cool. I got my shit together. I can go on. But you might like to add another step, which is to say, I'm noticing I'm having a really hard time. I'm making this gesture because that's my gesture. Mm-hmm. But for some people, cradling their hands, their face in their hands like this, like the gentle kind of touch, or hands on your belly, or hands together, palm to palm, or sometimes like a hug like this, a self hug. Those can be kinds of things that can help as you say to yourself, like, I'm having a hard time. Like, whoa, man, yeah. And then the third thing would be to say, no wonder. Like, and it can be like a kind of a gentle no wonder, but what's coming for me right now is like, no fucking wonder. Like, fuck, man. Like for me in this case, just in the past 18 months, my adult daughter had a health crisis that resulted in her being totally disabled from work. My dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's a week after the pandemic hit. The pandemic hit. I was helping to run a business at the time. So that we had to scramble as a group to handle that. Then I shut my business down. So there's the whole process of shutting the business down and coming to agreements with people. And then the next thing was reorienting my own business. Like now that I'm in solo practice again, what does that look like? And what am I going to do? Like, no fucking wonder it's a shit show in here, girl, like, and the one inside of me is like, yeah, fucking right. No wonder. And then I noticed, so I'm going to take a moment to feel that. Like the relief I experience, and also a little bit of humor. Like it's kind of like you're laughing and shaking, smiling and laughing, and I'm feeling that kind of smiley, laughy thing too. Like just there's some power in shared humanity, right? And there's the shared humanity between fellow humans, but there's also the shared humanity that we can have self to self, where my warmer, wiser, compassionate self recognizes the human experience of distress that my insides are experiencing, and we can be like, gotcha, girl, like I see you. It's a powerful thing to be able to do for ourselves. And that's like, to do that. So it's hard to do it on the fly. Mm-hmm. So I want to point out two things about this. One is that you could do it. What I would recommend is doing it every night. Just kind of like a little self check-in about, oh, I notice what's happening with me. Oh, I noticed that I'm upset. So noticing, validating, okay, so I noticed that I'm upset. And then kind of affirming, well, like, no wonder I'm upset or whatever. No wonder what's going on is going on, because look. And if you do that as a regular thing, like morning or night or whatever, it becomes a thing I do, so that then it becomes available on the fly. So that's the other side of this, is that you can use it when, like, let's say you just got the email from the client who took a strip off you up one side and down the other, right? That you can kind of just close the lid on your computer for a minute and go through those steps. And then once you're like back in your place, you can ask yourself, okay, what do I need to do next? That would be kind of like the fourth step. Right now, right in this moment, what do I need right now? Right? But without the daily practice, it's hard to access that in the moment because your lid is flipped. But that's one example of how we can be kind to ourselves when the shit hits the fan.
I'm so appreciative of you walking through those steps. Thank you. I could talk to you forever, so there's that. But what I want to do is end with a question that I ask everyone, which is changing gears, but also, what is the best advice that you have for moms?
Oh, for moms, geez. Well, for disclosure, my mom journey was also very fraught. And what I'm noticing as a parent of an adult child now, still fraught because of the intersections, all the intersections. Like, just what a fucking shit show it is to be a mother in this culture. It's just a fucking shit show. And it never stops being a shit show from that point of view of the oppressive systems and beliefs and values that are like laid on us. It just never stops. So I just want to, for solidarity with the moms listening, for solidarity with you, like, my mom story was not the blinky-eyed butterflies happily ever after mom story. And what would be my number one advice? My number one advice would be, find another mom with who you can talk shit. Because being able to say the unsayable, the things that if you said it, generally speaking, though people would be calling child and family services, like, I'm joking, but I'm not joking, right? Like, I remember times when I really, really, really wanted to wring her neck. And it was important to distinguish in myself at the time between wanting to and doing it are two different things. Like, I'm sure lots of moms have thoughts about harming their children, but that doesn't mean we're going to act on it. But the freedom to say to another mom who gets what a pressure cooker it is and how painful and difficult it is, and to be able to share the truth of your experience with another safe person who gets it. It helps if they're a mom and sharing the experience, I think. Like, finding that, having that one other person who's there with you saying the emperor has no clothes so you don't think you're crazy, priceless.
Absolutely. And I really just want to reiterate that whole, like, safe mom that's in maybe roughly the same stage as you, right? That's really, really helpful. Like, there's something about being around other moms when you have an infant, you know, you're just like, this is insane. And they're like, totally.
Somebody wipes the drool for you.
Yeah.
On the head. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Have it, for sure.
I appreciate you so much, and I appreciate everything that you had to say, and I'd love to have another conversation about bodies and embodiment. So maybe we should put that on the calendar for a little later on down the road.
Game. I'm so game.
Awesome.
I'm mad about a lot of that too. I'm ready to talk shit about it.
Awesome. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being you.
Thank you.